Hi everyone, this is Greg. Our featured playwright Livian talked about a few projects in this episode that you have a chance to see very shortly. First, This Place Displaced is being revived this winter by Artists Theatre of Boston in a series of pop-up productions at colleges and other places around Boston. See artisttheatreofboston.com for more information. And second, we talk about the Asian-American Playwright Collective. To learn more about that and some new play readings that we have planned, go to aapcboston.wixsite.com/mysite.
Boston Podcast Players is supported by a grant from the Bob Jolly Charitable Trust.
Boston Podcast Players.
The story thus far.
Cast of characters.
Empress of
An
Rome.
entity or demon.
A run-of-the-mill Polish guy in his 40s.
Setting.
In a small hut
A
in the
long
city of
forgotten
Beijing.
era that lives both in the
Act
past.
1,
We
Scene 1.
create the
possible.
world with the stories we tell about
Act 1,
ourselves.
Scene
Because
2.
Steven, he could
Act
be anywhere,
1,
right?
Scene 3.
Don't give up the ship!
Cannon fire.
Bianca pushes the stop button. The end.
Welcome everyone to Boston Podcast Players, Boston's virtual podcast stage for new works by local playwrights. I'm Greg Lamb, the host of the show, and today I'm joined by today's co-host, fellow playwright Christina Chan. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you and I are connected because we're in the Company One Play Lab in 2016, and also because we are starting, together with a number of other playwrights in the area, the Asian-American Playwright Collective. One among those is Livian Yeh, the featured playwright. What would you like to tell everyone about the AAPC?
The Asian-American Playwright Collective is a group of playwrights that aim to nurture, develop, and promote Boston-based playwrights. We want to raise awareness about the multi-layered experience of American playwrights who happen to be of Asian descent. And that's the long formal one. The short one is, I was getting a little lonely as a playwright, and I saw other Asian playwrights that were looking at the world kind of with the same lens as me, and I thought, that'd be fun to write with them. So that's the informal reason why AAPC was started.
And I'm glad you came up with this because I've been trying to do playwriting in Boston since 2002, and I don't know if I'd met another Asian playwright living in Boston until we got together in 2016 at the Company One Play Lab. So now we have at least 8 people among our collective, and we're hoping to do readings and development starting next year. We already had one event this year.
Mm-hmm.
We have an anthology that contains many of our plays by many of our playwrights. You can get that at tinyurl.com/AAPC-anthology. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, our handle is at AAPC Boston. Now, seeing as we are now in the post-Crazy Rich Asians era, we can now have a podcast with all Asian American playwrights in it. And as far as we know, this is the first time 3 Asian American playwrights in Boston get to talk about a play with only Asian characters in it. Christina, would you like to set up this excerpt we're going to hear from Livian's play Nightfall?
The excerpt we're going to hear is a student is examining his patient under the tutelage of his mentor, the acupuncturist. And this is in the year of 1975 in China, the last year under Chairman Mao.
Nightfall by Livian Yeh. Characters: acupuncturist, student, general's daughter. In a small hut in the city of Beijing. The year is 1975, a year before Mao died. The hut is old and decorated simply, with rows and rows of drawers full of herbs. Somewhere visible, there is a table and a few chairs. Various acupuncture equipment are scattered about. The smell of burnt herbs lingers in the air.
How are you feeling?
Bad.
What kind of bad?
Just bad.
How dare you?
Do not raise your voice at your patient.
I'm tired a lot.
What else?
I'm nauseous.
Now observe.
Her eyes are fine.
Very clear. How's your yin tang?
Normal. Not black.
No danger of imminent death. Now feel her pulse.
The student hesitates.
Go on.
The student places his hand on the wrist of the general's daughter.
I can't feel anything.
What do I always tell you?
3 fingers, 1 pillow.
The student adjusts the position of his hand on her wrist.
How about now?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
It's messy.
Let me see.
This is all your fault.
What's wrong with you?
Stop it!
She started it.
Don't provoke her.
Why not?
Remember when you said her pulse was messy?
Yes.
That's because there are 2 pulses within 1 person.
What do you mean?
Have I taught you nothing?
How is that possible?
Stop questioning. You'll disturb the child.
The child?
Shh!
Yes, the child.
Why haven't you...
Come here.
I can't...
Put your hand on her stomach.
The student hesitates.
Forget about her. She's not a person. She's just a body full of pressure points and elements right now.
The student puts his hand on the stomach of the general's daughter.
What do I look for?
The head.
Of the baby.
It should feel like a ball.
The student feels the head.
Heavens.
Did you feel it?
It's floating.
A floating ball. What's wrong with it?
Something's wrong?
Don't worry.
How can I not? You just said...
I'm giving him a lesson.
The head. It's upside down.
And why is that?
When the goddess sculpted mankind out of mud, she made our heads first. That's why we are born first with our heads.
But...
This baby is feet first.
What?
For now.
What do we do?
How long have you been pregnant?
She stops herself. She blushes.
Save your bashfulness. I'm a physician.
I missed 5 moon cycles.
Good. There's still time.
Time for what?
Kneel.
The general's daughter kneels on the table, with her upper body flat on the table as well.
Put your head sideways. Now stay like this.
This can correct the baby?
Yes. Don't tell them to do this if they've been pregnant for more than 30 weeks.
My waist hurts.
Just a few more minutes.
My head is spinning.
It'll pass. Get some needles ready.
You won't hurt the baby, will you?
Take deep breaths. Try to be calm. Your pulse is in disarray.
I'm nervous.
Try to think of something else.
I need a distraction. Tell me a story.
What?
Your student. He told me you used to tell stories to him all the time.
I don't.
Please.
Once upon a time, there was an herbalist. I don't know if your daughter would like this story.
Daughter? You said daughter.
Is it a girl?
No. I don't know.
How is she? Will she be all right?
Stop saying that. We don't know for sure.
I don't care what you think. What happened to the herbalist?
He wanted to taste all the herbs he ever encountered. He ate so many that his body turned transparent.
Did he die?
Eventually. But first, he was so famous that a warlord summoned him.
No.
What?
That didn't happen.
I want to know how the story ends.
You're mixing up the stories. The herbalist didn't get summoned.
It's a medicine story. I know all the medicine stories by heart.
It was an acupuncturist.
What?
It was an acupuncturist who got summoned.
What happened to the story?
It ended. No more stories.
That wasn't a very good ending.
We don't always get the ending we want.
The herbalist died.
This is making me sad.
Don't. You'll make the baby sad.
I can't stay positive all the time.
Seems easy enough if you're rich and live in a big house.
Do you know what they will do to me?
Stay down.
Do you have any idea what will happen to me if my father finds out that I am...
What? What are you?
With child. Out of wedlock.
I don't know. Lock you in your house?
I know men like you. Men like you are the reason the revolution happened.
Really? Sometimes I think our chairman just got really, really lucky.
Teacher.
If men like you were still in charge, my feet would still be bound right now.
What will your father do to you?
He'll send me to a labor camp.
You're his daughter, his blood and his bone.
Pregnancy out of wedlock is an insult to our country and the military. I have broken military law.
Your father can protect you.
If he tries, his enemies will call him a capitalist. Do you have any idea what they do to women at labor camps?
Why did you tell me?
I don't know.
You should have said something.
We weren't speaking.
You stopped talking to me.
What could you have done?
You came here for him?
I want help.
I knew something was wrong. The whole damsel in distress act.
It wasn't an act. Help me.
Go home.
I can't.
Go away.
I can't do that. Don't you see?
What you're asking me to do is illegal.
I hear things. There are certain herbs, certain places where the needles go in. It will be like that baby never existed.
That's not what I do.
You're the best at saving lives.
Yes, not at killing them.
You can save my life.
Walk her home.
Right now?
Immediately.
We can't just let her...
We? There is no we here, not anymore.
I'm sorry. I really am.
I'm not the one you should apologize to.
It was a mistake.
She's a girl, not a watermelon you can just pluck in to see if she's sweet. Be careful when you take her home.
What about me? What do I do?
This is your mess, you clean it up.
What if she tells on us?
I won't.
You say that now. What if she does? What if she utters our names to her father?
It doesn't matter.
But...
We're going to Chairman Mao's tomorrow morning. It doesn't matter if she talks to her father. It doesn't matter if she tells him the truth.
Our featured playwright is Livian Yeh, who just completed her tenure as a Company 1 Playlab Fellow. The featured play Nightfall was read by Fresh Ink in 2016. Livian has just completed one of the busiest summers I can remember seeing a playwright complete. Livian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And now for this podcast, at the point we recorded it, we had two full-length plays that we could have chosen to feature. One was Memorial, about the architect Maya Lin and her struggles to build the Vietnam War Memorial. But then there was also Nightfall, which is an entirely Asian subject matter that might be completely obscure to Americans. The anti-intellectual cultural revolution of China in the 1950s to 70s. Can you tell us how you came about to write this play?
Yes. So I wrote this play as my senior thesis in college. I was at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, and I was taking a writing class with the playwright Eduardo Machado, and I was also reading Mo Yin's novel Sandalwood Death, which is about the Boxer Rebellion. And during the class with Eduardo, he asked us to do a writing exercise, which is writing from a place of pain. And, Eduardo, he has all these crazy abstract writing exercises. So this one is to write from a place of pain and imagine someone who's in pain and another character who wants to stop this other person from experiencing pain. And I guess the play just came out of me. Yeah, I just poured it out in a magical way.
Now, have you had experience with the Chinese medicines that you write about in this play?
No, I don't actually believe in Chinese medicine. So, yeah.
But I do think it's convincing, even though you probably never have had acupuncture needle stuck into you.
No, and it's interesting because when I presented this play in class, Eduardo's a big acupuncture fan, and he goes every week. I don't know if he still does, but he used to. And some of the actors have also had experience with acupuncture, and so they're like, oh yeah, when you're doing acupuncture, they give you a little tap. Your needle. I don't know if you guys have done it,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and they're like, oh, I really don't like that, and I'm like, oh, really? I they seem to think I'm some sort of an expert, but I have never done acupuncture, and I don't actually really believe in traditional medicine. So,
but you did your research, so you can convince them.
Yeah, but it's about the play. It's not about what I know and don't know. So
I find it the excerpt that we just heard. I just love the way you keep us in suspense about the relationship. For me, I'm listening who is this? What is their relationship? What is their motive for being at that time and place right then and there? And you kind of, there's that thorough line. How conscious of you are you thinking of it? And I know this piece is a small excerpt from the bigger piece. Did you tailor it for this reading?
No, so I chose the selection, and then I think the director Kelly gave me some input on where to start and where to end, because this is an excerpt. But it's so hard to select an excerpt because
You have to keep people interested and like give them a good sense of the play.
By them wanting more.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I was left hanging at the end like, what's going to happen to all three of them? Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It was funny that, the usual rule of thumb is 1 page equals 1 minute of stage time. And then you gave 18-page, 20-page excerpt, but then when we did it, it's like, turns out to be like 8 or 9 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then I just went through a production where my play turned out, my full-length play turned out a page equals 1.4 minutes of screen time. And so the company was asking me, we have like a almost 3-hour play. Can we cut it down a bit?
But it was 90 pages?
Yeah, mine was like 107 pages, and then it ballooned into that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's not including intermission.
Right.
You have to include that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's long.
So, yeah, so maybe like, Nightfall has a lot of quick exchanges, a lot of back and forth, and they're not monologuing.
No, and like,
And it's one set, so you don't have to...
Exactly.
change.
And there's like no intermission.
Right.
And like when I wrote it, like I feel like I was so naive about writing for the theater, and like my technique was not as good. So like I just wrote it as one thing, and like I didn't give any thought about pacing or like, anything really. So I think it shows that it's like a short play that just happens.
Mm-hmm. And which draft are you on for this play that we just heard the excerpt of?
Maybe the 3rd or 4th draft, but I feel like it's not what it needs to be yet. But we'll get there sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope it gets further chances to develop because it's, despite it being set in China in the 1970s, it has themes that sort of resonate with the current political moment of a government that could anti-intellectual and oppressive and capricious towards its citizens, which is not a happy thought, but...
Yeah, it's definitely true.
I saw your play Memorial. Do you think that you would keep working on it? There's an article that appeared in the New York Times about when is a play done and how much should a playwright be explicit about how much acting should go in. Some playwrights put a lot of stage directions in, and including how sad or how much emotion. For instance, Rabbit Hole by David Lindsay Abner. He's written in, don't cry throughout the play because he saw subsequent productions. Would there be anything that you would say for Memorial that you would say you would add more stage directions, or it was just right, or?
I guess if I were to do that, to add, like not an instruction, but a suggestion, I would say, like, don't make this a race play. That would be my advice to people who will do it.
How much would you want a theater to look up the actual Maya Lin and I don't know if the other character is based in fact to try and study her mannerisms and her way of talking, or do you just want them to create their own character out of their own experience?
I don't think that it should be like an impression of her, but I do think that it would be great to look her up because she's still working, she's still making art, and like she was on the panel for the Freedom Towers, and I don't know if you've been to Freedom Towers, but where the towers were, they're now I guess wells. Like there are 2 like large
light wells. They're like impressions in the ground. They transmit shafts of light up. Is that the idea of them? Or?
So like because now that site's like so huge and there's like a museum and everything. But the ones I'm specifically thinking of are like they're like black granite square almost, and like the names of the victims are on there and like in the order that they were sitting. So and you look down, it's like there's water, so it's almost like a waterfall.
Right.
And she was on the panel for that, and she selected that design, and that design really reminded me of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So I think like in a way she's changed the way that this country sees memorials and sees the. So I think
before then they were expecting like statues of heroes.
Right. Yeah. And like the very name Freedom Towers, you can totally imagine like, like sort of very victorious or gaudy things happening on that site. But that's not what we have. Right. We have like a place for reflection.
So I think we should mention that the plot of Memorial is just following Maya Lin, who was a young student, architecture student, who won a nationwide contest to design the Vietnam Memorial.
And it was a blind contest.
A blind contest. And then there was a lot of friction between her and veterans committees who objected to the design and the concept even. And there was a lot of back and forth that was taken from real historical conflict, even if it's adapted into theater.
So what was your inspiration for writing that?
So Maya Lin's aunt is a famous architect in China, and she was the first female architect in China. So I've always known about her. And then I was just reading up on her, and I saw that her niece, who's, Chinese American, is also an architect. So then I knew about Maya Lin. And then when I was in DC for the Kennedy Center, I went to see that memorial. And if you're at the mall, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial looks completely different than the other memorials. So just like the different narratives really inspired me to write about her.
Going back to Nightfall, it was done by Fresh Ink in 2016 as a full production.
It was the ink spot.
Oh, the ink spot reading. And did you get a lot out of that process and working with Fresh Ink?
Yes, mostly because I wrote this play. It was almost like vomiting, I just got it out on the page, and I didn't give it any thought, on rewriting or the structure or development. And that experience with Fresh Ink was when I first started, sort of revising it.
Reading the draft we read, I wouldn't have guessed that you thought it was unstructured or in need of anything major.
Yeah, I think, I was lucky that I think the subject matter is interesting and, I feel passionate about the world of the play. I don't know, I just feel like writing is just, you just throw up and then you, get down on your knees and you, find things, that you can use.
When you start writing a thing, do you have a plan? Have you outlined it starts here, it'll end here? Or do you just go and start writing and it surprises you along the way?
Both, I think. So usually I write from a feeling that I have about something, and I usually know the first scene and the last scene. So I usually write both of them, and then I work out the middle.
And do you write at a particular spot somewhere? Do you have to have certain conditions?
I need a lot of water. I don't like to be thirsty.
Does it have to be quiet? Do you have to have other people around?
No, I can pretty much write anywhere. You know how Jonathan Franzen has an earplug and has to be completely quiet, and he has very specific requirements for writing. But no, I don't do that. Not to criticize Jonathan Franzen, but
everyone has their own process.
Yes, right.
So I mentioned that you just completed a tenure as a playwriting fellow at Company One's Play Lab, another of the playwright development options we have in Boston. And that culminated in a reading of your play Lifetime a few weeks ago. How did you find that experience?
It was interesting because it was my first playwriting thing after school. So I went immediately from my undergrad to the MFA program at BU. So the Company One thing was the first thing that I did in the world as a playwright. So just seeing how I applied the skills I learned at school, but then also learning new skills, that was a very fruitful experience. Just the fact that I needed to present myself now as a playwright, at school, yes, you were treated as a serious artist, but you were also a student. You're still getting graded and you're still seen as a student mostly. My thing with Company One was I was completely just a playwright. I went there and I had a play, and I was mostly an equal with, the people that I worked with. So that was very helpful.
Now you presented around a 20-minute excerpt of the play. Is
Yeah.
the play as a whole at a first draft stage?
I think this is the second draft. So when I applied to Company One, I gave them a 40-page of the first draft, and then I finished that draft, and then I rewrote that draft. So it's the second draft.
How many pages do you think you're up to?
I think now it's 117. But my pages are short, like Greg said. So
It depends on the play, probably.
Okay.
Now, that was the third play of yours I've experienced in one way or another, and this was the first one that was comedic in a lot of ways. The other two are mostly serious, and that was surprisingly laugh out loud funny places.
Yeah, that surprised me too. I think because there's I don't know, I think maybe I'm also evolving, as a playwright.
We have kids in this one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, which other plays don't have.
No. And this is definitely a bigger play because, it's about 2 countries and
Yeah, we should give
2 timelines.
1 or 2 sentence summary of what Lag Time's about.
Sure. Should I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So Lag Time is about the garment industry in Bangladesh. Originally, the Bangladeshis went to Korea to learn how to run a garment factory, and they brought that skill back to Bangladesh, and that's how the garment district started. But in my play, I sort of changed it to China, and I think it's a commentary about globalization and who makes our things, who works for us.
Because you have 3 distinct cultures there. Right. There is a Caucasian American there as well, trying to be in business with the Chinese and the Bangladeshis.
Yeah.
Culture clash and it brings lots of opportunities for drama and comedy.
Right. And I have to make a note that Boston used to be a textile.
Yeah, so Christina was very helpful because she told me that her mother used to work.
Yeah, my mom used to be a seamstress in Chinatown, which is where the women who immigrated from Hong Kong and China would work. And so there were garment factories in Boston's Chinatown. But because of the development of an industrialized country, pretty soon you stop outsourcing it because labor becomes more expensive.
Right.
I'm sure all the places where they worked are now luxury condos.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes.
Which brings us to the next thing you've done, This Place Displaced.
Yes.
Which just happened, right? And can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is a project produced by Artist Theater of Boston, and it's a series of 7 short plays, I want to say, and they're all about gentrification in Boston, or the Boston area.
And so you had playwrights paired with people in interviews, or?
Yeah, so ATB, this production company, they worked with a tenants' right organization, so they paired us with people who've experienced, displacement or were affected by gentrification, and we interviewed them and wrote a play based on their experience.
And was this 7 separate plays, or just one? Did it form one sort of unified whole?
So there are 7 short plays, but they feel like a sort of very coherent narrative. They were stringed together in a very coherent way.
Christina, you saw this last night, right?
I saw it last night, and it was sold out. I looked at the website. I was telling you too that I saw it. I looked at the website for the tickets on Thursday. I still had tickets. So 3 hours before the show starts on Saturday, I go look and it's all sold out. So I go to the theater and I waited with I think 8 or 10 other people, and we all got in. So even though the website said sold out, it's still okay. Yeah, it was a good showing. For me, I look at the diversity of the crowd.
Yeah.
And there was such a nice mix of people. Maybe you and I were the only Asians there, though.
I'm not too sure. But it was definitely the most people of color I've seen in a crowd. But it's been more diverse, I think, in Boston. I went to see Born for This with Arts Emerson.
Yes.
There was a lot of African-American audience in the crowd. So I think they're improving.
It's improving.
Yeah.
It's improving.
But my boyfriend, so he's white, and after the show, he's like, so many evil white characters in this place. And I would be like, yeah, it doesn't feel good to be generalized now, does it?
Now, just you talking through your sort of history, you've done both Company 1, you've done MFA at BU, so you've gone through a couple of different types of playwright development processes. I know back when I was just out of college, I was wondering whether to try for an MFA for playwriting, and I just never really did it.
Yeah.
What did you think about that, doing that process?
So I went to the BU MFA right after I graduated from NYU, which is I think a lot of people advise against it now, but I don't think I would have done it if I didn't go immediately. I think it was a good experience. I learned a lot. It was a free program. I got to teach. I feel like I wouldn't be the writer that I am today without the experience. It was totally worth it for me. But at the same time, like if you have to take out loans for an MFA, or like if you have to put your life on hold, I think like if someone was in a different stage of their lives, like I don't know if it would have been worth it for them.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So I grew up in Boston. Christina, you've been here for most of your life?
Yes, I was born in Hong Kong and I came when I was 2. So I've been raised here many, many years.
Yeah. And Livian, you were born in the U.S., but then you were raised in Asia?
Yes, so I was born in Boston. My parents were studying here, and then we moved back to Taiwan, which was where I grew up. And then I came back to the States for college.
So what can you tell us about Boston as a sort of someone who's been outside of Boston for a while and coming here with newer, fresher eyes, especially with the Boston theater scene?
Yeah, I think like I have to say that it's a very white city. But it's not. It's a very diverse city, but I think it's a very segregated city. I was talking to my friend who's from Taiwan, and he came to visit me in 2015. And so I was telling him how, like, I now work in Roxbury, and there's a lot of Black people there. And he's like, no, I didn't see any Black person in Boston when I was there. And I think, like, and you know, like, he was a tourist, so, like, we went to, like, Faneuil Hall. Like, we did, like, tourist things. And so I feel like that's very telling of, like, the way that the city presents itself and what it values. You know, it's like the revolutionary history that it values. That's the emphasis of that narrative, is on how white men saved this country, or how white men started this country. But that's not true. And, like, you know, I feel like I never hear about the Native American history in this area. I mean, there's so many, like, Asian American academics in the area, but I don't hear about them. I see them, I know that they're here, but...
Yeah, just, you know, modern media portrayals of Boston.
Right!
You would not know that there was such a large Hispanic population.
Right.
Yeah.
Black and Asian.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cameos, but
Right.
we're not sitting in the back of the set of Cheers or or things like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys read the latest issue of the Boston magazine, but so the cover, I only saw it at Whole Foods, so I didn't read it, but the cover is like Old Boston versus New Boston, and so the one for Old Boston is like this white guy in a suit, and the New Boston is like the guitar bear, and yeah, I mean, I was like, is that really the Old Boston? Or is it just what we think of as the Old Boston?
You may have to explain the guitar bear to Christina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She had quite the puzzled look on her face.
So the guitar bear is a person wearing a bear costume, and he has like a sort of a keyboard guitar around his neck. And
he performs in Harvard Square, is that?
Yeah, I saw it in Fenway once. So it has a wide presence in the city.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a thing. Thinking about your time living in Asia, it occurs to me I know very little about the theater scene in Asia, aside from like seeing the traditional Chinese operas once or twice.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's like to try and make theater in Asia?
So I haven't made theater in Asia, in Taiwan specifically. I know that there's a lot of things happening. So I know that in China they're very into like American musicals, but in terms of new plays, like in Taiwan, there's a lot of like small theater companies, and they're doing like very exciting things and like, experimental things. I think like the problem is like the mentality of the disregard of the performing arts, or like the sort of seeing art as not a profitable career, not a respectable career. And I think that really affects, you know, the artistic prospect of a place. But
so, Livian, what got you interested in playwriting, since you grew up in Taiwan that has that kind of attitude towards playwrights and theater and artists?
You know, that's interesting. Like I've always read a lot. I've always been an avid reader, and I was always interested in language. I started reading a lot of Oscar Wilde's play, and I wanted to be just like him. And then I went to an international school for high school, and we had Shakespeare performances every day. Not every day, sorry, every year. But and like it was really in high school that I realized like people do art and they're artists. So I started doing that, and I also wanted to be a screenwriter, which was why I went to NYU. But I think I fell out of love with that life in college. So I just started writing plays. Yeah.
I was mentioning to Christina that in Crazy Rich Asians, the free-spirited character of Rachel Chu, they made her, the free-spiritedness was pursuing her passion of being an economics professor in NYU.
Right.
And even that wasn't enough for the prospective in-laws. So if she had been a playwriting...
yeah, isn't that
in New York,
interesting? Yeah.
I can imagine how that would have gone with Eleanor.
Yeah. I think in the books, though,
she
didn't, like, it wasn't, like, her passion. Like, I think in the books...
Well, my wife said she was a history professor, not an economics professor.
Oh, I didn't realize, but I think that wasn't a theme in the books. I think it was just, like, she's an academic, and, yeah.
So another thing that you do is that you are a translator.
Yes, I am.
English into Chinese and back again, right? And you're actually helping Christina translate her play into Chinese.
Yes.
Can you tell us about how it is to translate things into another language?
Yeah, so in college I did a lot of summer internships in film companies where I would translate the subtitles from Chinese to English. So like that was kind of how I started. In grad school, I took a class on literary translation, so that's kind of how I honed my craft. And now I'm working in the public sector, and that's like a totally different type of translation because we're working with immigrants and we're using parent-friendly language. So with Christina's play, Stir Frying Mahjong, coming October, the Powell Arts Center.
October 12th, yes.
Yeah. Like, it's just really nice to use my literary translation muscles again. I mean, it's wonderful, and it's like so difficult because, of course, that Christina is the author of the play. So I'm just a medium to express her words. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just a totally different process.
Well, I feel like I got a home run having Livian translate my play.
Yeah.
Because she's a playwright and then she's a translator. So it was the perfect marriage.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the Chinese translation, we're going to project it onto a screen.
Yes.
And Livian's going to actually help with the projection because she's so familiar with the script.
Yeah.
And you can understand, because you can follow along with the English. Yeah. So you're like the triple threat here. The playwright, the translator, the projectionist, you got it all. So I'm very lucky to have you, Livian. I really thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I have to say, like, originally I was like very ambitious. I was like, I can totally work on Christina's play, and I can work my own play, and I will work on my company one play. I can do everything. And also I'm working, I have a day job. But after I started translating Christina's play, like, it's like writing a play because, I'm going through line by line, and like I am thinking about the characters,
the
like
rhythms, the references, maybe. The
way they talk. That this probably sounds flippant, but like it's like so much more work than I thought it would be. But yeah,
you might be asking for a raise.
We have a contract that
Livian put in.
But yeah, so it's just, I mean, like I just have so much more respect for like translators now.
Well, I have to say something about Crazy Rich Asians. I have a friend who saw it in New York City, and they had the Chinese subtitles for when they spoke English, and also whenever they spoke Chinese, there's English subtitles, but they had both of them at the same time. And my friend who reads Chinese said the subtitles were not good at all.
I'm sure it's like Google.
It was not good at all, and she said she was really, it distracted from the story because she would read it and she goes, "What? That's not what they said," because she understands English perfectly. It was very annoying. So it's a skill. It's a skill.
Absolutely.
That's very, very specific.
It's interesting that they wouldn't be able to get it right.
But like I think the problem with Crazy Rich Asians is that like I think originally the books and the movie is like for white people. Like I saw it and I was like, oh my god, this is a movie about me. But like I think that originally like it's like a material that's like titillating for white people. So I think that speaks to a lot of the choices that it's made and sort of the problems.
Although it was co-written by an Asian female screenwriter, Adele Lim. I don't know who the other co-writer is. I can't remember that person's name. But I was telling Greg earlier before you came that I saw an interview of her at the premiere in LA. And she was crying. She said, I've been writing for 16 years for film, and this is the first time I've written for an all-Asian cast on an Asian theme. And I started crying, going, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 25 years since Joy Luck Club movie, so
Yeah.
it is literally true that they're few and far between.
Right, and they've already greenlighted the sequel because of how well it did at the box office. Yeah. I know here in Boston, we've had people buy up theaters so they can donate it.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife about that. She was like, really? And then I was saying, like a week before the actual opening day, this happened, right?
I've seen it twice already. And Greg, you've seen it twice.
Yeah, I saw it the second time last night because my wife and I saw it separately because I was in Florida on a trip.
I saw it with my son.
That's so nice.
And
bringing Asian families together.
It's hysterical because my son said to me, when Eleanor first sees Nick, she comments on his hair and how skinny he looks. And my son pointed to me, turned around in his chair and says, that's what you said to me when I came home from school.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what mothers are. That's,
Right.
So one thing I hope that happens, that people who listen to this podcast will actually look into working with the featured playwrights. So, Livian, what is the phone call you'd most like to get from someone listening to this podcast?
I've been thinking about this, Greg, because since the last time we talked, they're talking about like doing a movie version of Silk, who's like a Asian-American spider woman. Okay. So, yes.
We recorded the interview before at the beginning of summer, but then technical difficulties, stupidity on my part, we erased it, so now we're re-recording the interview. So the first answer was she wanted a call from Marvel Studios. To make a movie, and now you have a specific character in mind. I'm actually not familiar with Silk.
No, but actually, I feel like, if someone else is doing that, I would like to change my answer, Greg. So I've been getting really into romance novels, and I actually think that there's so much about the romance genre that the theater can learn from, because like there's a big push in the romance writing world to be diverse, and I think because now with self-publishing, it's like so easy to just publish your own material. Like the publishing world, at least in the romance writing publishing world, they can't fight this wave of just writers of color publishing their own works and winning awards for their own work. So I think there's actually a lot of great things going on in terms of representation and inclusivity in romance novels. This is not a podcast about romance novel, I realize. But so recently there's a romance novel that came out called The Kiss Quotient. It's by this writer Helen Huang, and it's about a Vietnamese Swedish man and a woman. And so I'd like to write a screen adaptation for that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
And Shonda Rhimes is going to adapt a bunch of romance novels for Netflix. So I think it's happening. It's, So that's what I would like to get a call for.
All right. If I make a suggestion to the universe, if they ever do Crazy Rich Asians, the stage adaptation, you might be ideal for that.
That would be a blast.
That would be very interesting.
So for people to get in touch with you or to learn more about you, you suggest your website?
Yes, so it's just livianyeh.com.
And the last name is spelled, let me just spell it, LIVIANYEH.com.
Yes.
Well, Livian and Christina, thank you very much for coming by and spending some time with us and talking about your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Livian.
And to everyone listening, support new plays and support your local playwrights.
Nightfall was written by Livian Yeh. The acupuncturist was played by Eric Chung. The student was played by Kyle Chua. The general's daughter was played by Kim Klasner. Stage directions were read by Holly Capinos. The play was directed by Kelly Galvin. Special thanks to Christina Chan for hosting our recording. Follow us on Twitter at BossPodPlay and on Facebook. Please rate us on iTunes or your podcast player of choice. You can support us on Patreon at BossPodPlay. Our theme was composed by Thomas Deus, thomasdeusmusic.com. Additional music by bensound.com. other than yourself? Do you know of a Boston area playwright who you'd like to be featured on the show? Let us know at bosspodplay@gmail.com.